want to signal? Scott?
Welcome, everyone. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I need a motion to approve the agenda for the business meeting of December 6, 2021.
Eric and Jim, thank you.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I'd like to move to the open forum. The following guidelines apply. Let me just switch this over. The 30-minute open forum is the time the board sets aside to hear in-person comments from the public. Comments may also be emailed in advance of the meeting prior to 4 p.m. on the date of the meeting, and state in the email if you would like your correspondence read out loud to Daphne Pearson, District Clerk at pearsond@greenvillecsd.org. This is an opportunity for residents to voice general concerns or compliments, especially about items on the agenda. However, this is not the time to register complaints about specific individuals or about items that should be addressed confidentially through the proper channel. For example, typically with the principal or the superintendent of schools, as appropriate. All comments shall be addressed to the district clerk and shall be limited to no more than 5 minutes per board policy 2180. Please note that members of the board may not be able to directly respond to citizens' concern during the public open forum.
I do have one.
Okay, I do have a letter that we received on 11/22, which was addressed to the Greenville Board of Education. I am going to just read parts of it because it is a 3-page letter that, number one, was anonymous. So we do not know if it was one individual or more. It is signed by multiple groups, but again, because it is anonymous, we have no way of knowing. So it says, to the Greenville Board of Education, thank you for your attention to the sensitive matter. The intent of this correspondence is to bring awareness to a state of unrest that is happening within the Greenville school community, specifically among the unvaccinated members of the school community who are seeking to understand the COVID-19 testing requirements the district is implementing on November 29th, 2021. The best way to articulate the concerns is through the messages sent and messages received. It does then go on and addresses specific items. The unvaccinated staff at Greenville believe in district leadership. The board has shown in countless situations that it cares for the students, faculty, staff, and administration over the years. Unvaccinated staff are seeking to understand the district's purpose of targeting a specific segment of the school community for testing. It is the purpose, one, the safety and well-being of all within the community, 2, to pressure the unvaccinated to get vaccinated, or 3, the compliance of school personnel. Regardless of individual beliefs on vaccination and or testing, the fact remains that there is growing unrest and anxiety within a third of the school population. The unvaccinated personnel ask that the school leadership respect its unvaccinated staff by doing more than saying they are valued personnel, by providing time for discussion prior to implementation of requiring testing, by respecting personal anonymity, by treating all personnel the same in regards to testing, and by providing alternative options for testing that are acceptable to unvaccinated personnel. Thank you for listening to a group of personnel who are not feeling heard. Only by working together can we foster a school community in which everyone teaches, learns, and belongs. Spartan strong. We can say is that Superintendent Tammy Sutherland will be discussing the COVID testing later on in this evening. like I said, this was an anonymous letter. We do not know if it was one person or multiple. It was the only one I was. Okay, then moving right along to our presentations, we would like to welcome the National FFA Convention presentation by FFA students.
All right, good evening, board. My name is Hunter Smigel. I am in 11th grade and part of the FFA here at Greenville.
My name is Michelle Case, and I am one of the senior FFA advisors, and I'm also one of the chaperones/advisors that went with Hunter to the National Convention, which was held in Indianapolis, Indiana this year.
All right, so to begin, first off, we'd like to thank you again for allowing us to go on this trip. It was a great time, as I'm about to show you through some of these pictures, and I'll explain what we were doing, how the trip went, and yeah, all right, let's get started. So up there's just two pictures. On the left, it's kind of a special picture because we take that, I'm pretty sure, like every year that big FFA sign is there, and every year we take a group picture there, so it's kind of a special place there. Yeah, tradition, that's a good way to put it. And then on the right, the convention, or the sessions, the big sessions that were held there, were held in Lucas Oil Stadium. So that's just a group of us walking into Lucas Oil right there. Our first stop on the trip was the Cleveland Museum of Natural History. There's just a picture of the group. We saw a few really cool things. On the left, you just see the History Center. That's kind of what we toured while we were there. And on the right, another group picture. Here's some of the cooler exhibits that I decided to throw in there. On the left top corner there, bald eagle. Love bald eagles, they're awesome. And on the right and the bottom, you see they have this giant, like, skeleton of dinosaurs exhibit, and that was pretty cool to see. Right there, you see the big T-Rex.
And we mean giant.
Yeah, they were
You don't
very
realize
big.
how big they are until you're standing next to them.
Yeah, you can kind of see like those people in the background as like a reference to how big they were. They're pretty cool. The next trip we went on was Fair Oaks Farms. This is a massive farm. I think the person we went on a tour said it was like 19,000 acres was the entire size of the farms. It was a ginormous plot of land in Indiana, and I think there was 37,000 cows that they have on this farm, and they pretty much have every animal, every kind of crop that you can grow out there. They have a lot of wildlife preserves, things like that, so it's a pretty cool place that we got to visit. On the left, that's outside of one of the visitor centers there. And on the right, they have like this guided tour where you are on a bus and you're pretty much touring the cattle farm. That was pretty cool. So you can see how long that barn is. It's pretty massive, and there's every single stall there's cows, so it's pretty cool to see. On the left, there's that tour bus, and on the right, that's actually a pretty cool picture. I had never seen this before we went on this trip. That is how this massive farm milks their cows. So it's this big wheel that just spins, and the cows have learned to like take turns. So like one will step off, one will go on, and they've learned how to like go around. They get milked and then they step out and go around. So that's a pretty cool machine, and they have quite a few of them across the farm. So that was pretty cool to see. We're in like a viewing stand there looking down on it.
We couldn't get the video to load, but it literally, like, the cow comes in the side, and it goes around that whole carousel. It's moving all day long. And then a chain comes out and bumps them in the nose, and they back out, and another cow goes in, and it goes right around. So, and there's monitors on there that tells you, like, what cow it is, how much milk that cow will give, if it's been milked yet today. And some of them just go, like, they go on the ride.
Yeah.
So, legit, it's kind of cool.
That is what the tour guide said. So the next kind of big event we were at was the rodeo. I had personally never been to a rodeo before, so it's a pretty cool thing to see. Again, there's the group. There's some pictures. So they had people riding horses, and as well as later on they had the cows, and that was pretty cool to see. It was pretty funny as well. I got a good kick out of that.
The Broncos and the Bulls.
The Broncos and the Bulls. And the convention, again, there's Lucas Oil. On the left, there's a map. So it's hard to tell just how big the scale of this convention is. They close off like 4 streets, I think it is, in Indianapolis for this convention, because there's so many people that attend, and it's pretty awesome. You can see that was the first day off to the right there. We're up way at the top, so you can just see the size of the convention and the stage there. So you have like the Lucas Oil, then you have the mall that's attached, and also the giant expo, which is like 2 ginormous rooms. One is like an entire FFA store, and the other is like colleges that will come in and different vendors that you can go walk around and see what they have. So it's a very large scale event.
For some ungodly reason, it's a tradition for these guys to sit way up at the top for the first session.
Yes.
And do you know how steep and how hard it is for this 5-year-old to get those stairs? It's great. I was like, you guys are just nuts.
Yeah. And I think this is my last slide here. One of the highlights of the convention every year is being able to watch the national officer team get selected. Now, there are some like 700,000 members. Yes, 700,000 members across the country.
Oh, yes.
Across the country, and these 6 people are selected. Every year there's 6 people that are selected out of these 700,000. So it's always cool to see them and their reactions to that great accomplishment. That's all I have. So thank you very much for listening and letting us share this presentation with you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Walker.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Very good.
What a wonderful opportunity. So thank you very much for sharing that experience, and it's fabulous. We appreciate it. So now we're going to move on to the instructional coaching model with Laura Calvino, Eric Caputi, Michelle Neary, and Todd Hilgendorf. Thank you.
30 seconds to swap slides here. All right. Good evening, everybody. So Tracy introduced us, but just in case you don't know the name to the face, obviously everybody knows myself. Carrie Caputi is our math instructional coach at the elementary school and into 6th grade. And then we have 2 literacy coaches, Laura Calvino and Michelle Neary, joining me tonight to share with you information on how the instructional coaching model has been going so far this year, our aspirations for the year, the connection to our district goals and the work that we're doing for improvement across the district, and also, of course, answer any questions that you have for us tonight. So before we get into the specifics of what we've worked on so far this year, I always like to use this slide as a foundation for information when we share it. So this slide is our district goals that we talked about over the summer and the board adopted leading into this school year. And specifically for the purpose of the conversation that we're going to have tonight is the goal 1, which is curriculum and instruction, and then goal 2, which is the culture piece. So those 2 are very much part of the work that instructional coaches connect to, the curriculum work, the instructional work that they've been doing, but also this culture piece of building a team and collaboratively working together as professionals. So I think it's important to always use that as a foundation of the work when we talk about new initiatives and new programs, new things that we're working on. Well, instructional coaches in this format is something new for Greenville, so it's important for us to connect it back to those improvement work and the district goals. So just keep that in mind, the curriculum and the culture goals that we have for the district. The other piece that I wanted to use to set the stage, when we work on school improvement and we think about where we want to put our energy, instructional coaching has been part of the conversation for many years at Greenville of trying to get something started at this level. But it's not just a Greenville idea. There's actually resources that are provided by New York State for schools that are looking for different ways to improve and to work on improvement plans and growth. And it's all research-based, which is also important for us always to remember what is shown by research to be effective in schools for school improvement and school growth. So one of those that's supported by New York State is this instructional coaching model. So the slide that's up here, this is taken directly from New York State's state-supported evidence-based strategies. And I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but just pulling out a couple of highlights that will connect to what we're going to share with you and the work that has happened so far this year. It's the curriculum piece. Sound familiar? Goal number 1. The instructional piece and instructional practices, also connected to district goal number 1. And then the other piece that the state pulls out that's really critical when it comes to instructional coaching is this data piece. And you'll hear all 3 of our coaches share a little bit about the data. Certainly Carrie and I refer to ourselves as data nerds, say that with affection, right? So data is very much a piece, great affection. Data is very much a piece of the instructional coaching model, how we collect data, organize data, utilize data, and make it meaningful. So again, I want to mention this because these 3 pieces, the curriculum, the instruction, and that data piece, is very much supported by educational research of what's effective when we talk about making growth and school improvement. And if you want to learn more, there's a link on the bottom, and it actually references some research there as well. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over. So we have broken this into 3 different categories of aspirations or hopes for this year in the instructional model that we're incorporating here at Greenville. So first it's going to be the cultural focus and this idea of reflective practice. Then we're going to talk about a team focus, and last but most certainly not least, we're going to talk about a student focus and how the coaching model connects to all 3 of those. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Michelle to share about the cultural focus.
Thank you, Todd.
Just click the button on the bottom. There you go.
Hello. Is that good? So part of our work is really helping teachers to see the value in coaching. I mean, we're looking to go into their classrooms and be their cheerleaders and say, you're doing great with this, but I think we could work on this, or how do you feel about changing this? So it's building that understanding of what coaches do and how we can support them, and that we want them to value that continuous learning model and to reflect on their practices so they can grow as professionals. This is all about building the relationships. Now, we've all been in the district for many of the years, but we were in teachers, Laura and I were in the teacher role, so now we're taking a different stance. And there were some questions about what our responsibilities were. So it's been really about building the trust in the teachers so they feel comfortable with us, that we're still their colleagues and we're there to help and support them. But part of that is really that relationship building. So the first quarter has been really, sharing out with teachers what our roles can be and what it can look like. And we really are hoping that the teachers see this as an opportunity for growth and to feel safe to invite us into their classrooms. And then from there, once we develop those relationships and that trust, that's where the positive change and continuous improvement can happen. So it's going to be baby steps to get there, but we're already into classrooms and doing that hard work, and so it's been rewarding on both ends.
I'm definitely going to need this. Okay. So working within the whole team and the whole school to create that culture of reflective practice and responsive teaching is one of our most important goals. And one of the ways that we're working on that is through a team focus. We're working with grade level teams. We're working with instructional teams, so classroom teams that have a classroom teacher, maybe a special educator, maybe an interventionist. So there are groups of people that are working within classrooms, and so we are supporting those relationships with one another in that team, and also using the data that they have on students, iReady, Words Their Way, all of the different data points that we have, their observations of students, and building goals and differentiating instruction for those students. So that is some of the work that we are doing, working with teams. We're also working with grade level teams to look at their data as well. And having those teams kind of reflect on their instruction and what they need to change in their instruction in order to move forward and reach all the students in their classroom. So we will continue to do that work. We meet with grade level teams at least quarterly. We've met with them several times during the superintendent conference days. We have opportunities to meet with teams for curriculum mapping as well as during our faculty meetings.
And that brings us to the student focus and student learning, which of course is a point. So we've all mentioned data, affectionately, yeah. But really the collaborative team approach and the reflective practice really makes data review and analysis extremely meaningful. So now you have a team in the classroom all contributing, all looking at multiple measures of student data, all contributing on what they're seeing with each student in that class, their learning, and most importantly, using that data to inform the instruction. So to provide for differentiation, to address specific student needs. And in the course of the year, we do this continuously. So we have different stages in the year where we do full data review across the building, but we're constantly looking at multiple measures and utilizing the RTI model and its fluidity and its flexibility to address student needs. So really, it's a major shift in our district and our learning community to build that reflective practice, team focus, and that student focus with utilizing both of them. I would say also the shift in the classroom model at Ellis, that everyone is within the learning community. So we have coaches within the classroom, along with the classroom and the special education teachers, along with the interventionists. So everyone is working together in that learning community. And we as coaches can also work as liaisons horizontally across grade levels and also vertically, which is powerful in providing that consistent, high-quality classroom instruction. So, student focus, team focus, and the reflective practice.
Thank you. So those are the three categories, as I mentioned, aspirations and things that we've been working on for this year already and where we plan to go throughout the rest of this year. We wanted to give you a little bit better idea of what does this look like on a day-to-day basis. So we actually pulled some slides from a presentation that we worked on and the coaches presented at one of our first faculty meetings in September to the faculty. So just keep in mind, this was actually the original audience of this was faculty to understand the role of the coach. We are very fortunate at Greenville in that when we've talked about the coaching model and we were able to work the coaches into the stimulus funds, because this is all part of the stimulus funds that we are receiving as a district, we were incredibly fortunate as a district to have these three fine educators who know Greenville, know the history of Greenville, know the work that's happened in Greenville in recent years to build off of that. So I feel very fortunate for the district that we've had the three of them step up into a new and different role, but it allows them to grow as educators, but also allows them to really take all the things that we've done in recent years and take it to the next level. But it was also important at the start of the year, as Michelle mentioned, it's a different role. So it's important that everybody that's participating and being part of this team in a classroom understand those different roles. So with that said, I'm going to try to play a video, or just a little bit of a video. Again, the original audience of this was our elementary and also 6th grade faculty. Or not. Scott. Where's our tech coach? Oh wait, we didn't invite her to this presentation. Let me try one thing. If it doesn't work, we can send this out and folks can try.
It's a hot meal. We put Band-Aids on.
Oh wait, don't listen, it's gonna ruin it. Don't listen.
the thing, he's not the enemy.
And then you can start again.
Most people, their kids are grown and gone, or they never had kids. They don't walk into a neighborhood public.
I'll set the stage because it started a little bit.
Can you
there.
just pull it back?
Hit the bar back.
There you go, there you go.
There we go.
I was sitting on an airplane and the nice talkative man in the middle seat, if I think someone is talkative, oh my God, they're so talkative. And he's telling me where he's going and what he's doing and what his business is. And he says, so what do you do, darling? And I said, well, I'm a teacher and now I work with the National Education Association. And he stopped smiling. And he said, I've heard about you people. He said, I hear you need this, and then I hear you need that, and then I hear you need something else. And to tell you the truth, darling, I'm getting tired of hearing it. I'm a businessman. I want you to bottom line it for me. I want you to tell me right now, what is the one single thing that would solve all of our problems in public schools? And I said, that's easy. What we really need are fewer people who think there's one single thing that would solve all of our problems in public schools. And you know, I wish I hadn't been so snotty to that guy, but it was fun. And here's the thing, he's not the enemy. Most people, their kids are grown and gone, or they never had kids. They don't walk into a neighborhood public school. I'm an educator. It's up to me to educate the man in the middle seat as much as to educate a politician about what happens in any given typical school on any given typical day. I mean, we serve kids a hot meal. We put Band-Aids on boo-boos. We diversify our curriculum and instruction to meet the personal and individual needs of all of our students, the blind, the hearing impaired, the physically challenged, the gifted and talented, the chronically retarded, and the medically annoying. We make sure that they've had their immunizations, make sure they understand disease control, teach them to resist drugs, alcohol, tobacco. We give career counseling, pregnancy counseling, mental health counseling. We get them on the bus safely. We take them off the bus safely. We provide computer instruction, sex education. We stop bullying, teach them to say, I'm sorry, and mean it. We instill an understanding of civil rights, the political process, challenge racism, foster social tolerance, and appreciation for our cultural and religious diversity. We teach the principles of free enterprise, how to be a good sport. We develop personal responsibility, practice bicycle safety, and check for head lice. We provide bilingual education, teach metrics, how to be a wise consumer, exercise weight control, how to drive a car. We teach the impact of wars, develop collaborative skills, how to tune a violin, how to use reason and evidence to predict the future. We teach them to revere their environment, how to manage their money, how to access information, how to make wise choices, how to balance the checkbook. We teach loyalty to the ideals of a democracy. We build patriotism, good oral hygiene, and respect for the worth and dignity of every individual. We nurture curiosity, encourage a good question, build self-esteem, and then we teach reading, writing, and arithmetic.
So again, the original audience of this was faculty, and part of the coaching model is really making sure we understand the complexities of what happened in a school and in a classroom every single day. And those complexities present a lot of different challenges, but also a lot of opportunities for growth and improvement. So the coaching model is this idea of how do we come together and support each other, understanding all those complexities, understanding all those challenges, and having another layer of support to help us do that in a more effective way. So that's the idea of that video, and it's also entertaining and kind of funny, so that helps too.
And here's the thing, he's not the enemy. Most people.
So with that, what a coach is not and what a coach is. We're actually going to start on the right-hand side of what a coach is not. So Carrie, tell us what a coach is not.
Yeah, so we really had to explain to our fellow colleagues what are we and what aren't we, because it is scary. We're coming in your room, so what are we doing? So what we are not enforcers or evaluators, we're not consultants or trainers, we're not mediators, and we're not supervisors. But more importantly, what are we? So we are confidential partners, co-planners, participants, feedback providers, cheerleaders, modelers of instruction, gatherers of resources and materials, supporters, and most importantly, peers. So what we'd like to do is now share with you some anecdotes from our beginning part of the year from each of the levels that we actually work with. So Michelle is going to share an example of her work at the faculty level, and Laura is going to share an example of work at the team level, and then I'm going to share an example of work at the individual teacher level from this year.
Well, a big goal this year has been in reinforcing our instruction in phonological awareness and phonics. And this is all based on the findings from the Science of Reading, which shows the importance of teachers providing explicit, systematic, and purposeful instruction. So I've worked with teams and individuals at the primary levels to support their work with the phonics units of study. We review curriculum. I've been in classrooms to model lessons. We've worked on curriculum mapping and quarterly pacing guides. We've worked on organizing materials. In addition, we have planned some faculty meetings based on phonological awareness and phonics. And we're working on setting up classroom visits so teachers can visit their peers to see how phonics and phonological awareness is taught in other classrooms, those teachers that aren't feeling so secure about that. So it's a big goal for the year. Teachers have been teaching phonics in different manner throughout the years, but now there's a real big focus and push for the value of doing it systematically and explicitly. And that's my job, which I love.
So at the team level, I'm just going to give you an anecdote of a particular team that I worked with. So there was a team who was looking, and collectively we were looking at their data, we were looking at their iReady and some historical data, and just what the children were doing in the classroom. And this team determined that there was an instructional area of need for their entire group of cohort of children. And it was one that it may have been part of a result of COVID. So it was a change, something that they didn't normally spend a lot of time in. So what we did was we explored research, we reviewed resources, we developed a plan for this instruction as a team. They created lesson plans, and I modeled lessons within their classrooms. They watched me teach, I watched them teach. They saw feedback on my teaching, or they gave me feedback on my teaching. I gave them feedback on theirs, and we made changes accordingly. So that is an example of some work that we've done at the team level.
And now an example with working with an individual teacher. One teacher that I have been working with regularly is new to the grade level. So our collaboration began with me visiting her classroom, really interacting with her and also her students during learning, providing feedback, reflecting on lessons, brainstorming things that she would like to see changes in. And then we collaborated. One of the first things we did was create a structure for the math class instruction. And that also, a segment of that involved a peer visitation that Michelle mentioned. And that is a powerful tool. And that is one where we're hoping grows, because that certainly throws open your classroom door. You get to go visit a colleague that's either on your grade level or not on your grade level, and actually watch and be able to look at the students learning in that classroom, look at the structure of instruction, decide what you might want to explore, and then the power is really the two teachers and the coach sitting down and having that conversation. So a lot came out of that that was put into the structure of the math class. And that allowed us, once that structure was created, to focus on the curriculum, the instruction, and ultimately the assessment. So what have we been doing lately? We've been co-planning lessons, we've been co-teaching them, and this past week I've been modeling some material for her. So that's an example of working with individual teachers. So individual level, team level, and the building level.
And I'll just add a little bit more to that, picking up where Carrie left off, the idea of curriculum instruction and assessment. So our vision document for the district, those areas that we work on, and the vision that we have for curriculum, the vision we have for instruction, for assessment, and environment, the work of the coaches has really taken the focus that we've had on curriculum in recent years, and we've done a tremendous amount of work around curriculum and aligning to standards and creating horizontal and vertical alignment. Certainly there is always and will always be work to do in that area of curriculum. What the coaches have been able to do is take that work and the instructional piece. So now the shifting that focus even more so to instructional practices and what that looks like in the classroom, and that reflective practice of learning from each other has done a tremendous amount for that instructional practice piece, as well as the assessment and the data, which has been mentioned. So I just want to connect that back to our vision. And then the last piece that was mentioned earlier as well is taking all of that and providing more targeted professional development and professional learning for our teachers. So on the recent conference days, our coaches took their knowledge of each individual grade level and what those grade levels have been working on, their areas of focus, the data that that grade level has been looking at, and was really able to create opportunities for grade levels that were specific to their needs, so that that professional learning is that much more purposeful. So again, a thank you to them, because they coordinated all of that and used the time on our conference day for those learning opportunities. The last slide, or second to last slide.
This is just an example of what we shared with the faculty at the beginning of the year. Some ideas of things that we were able to work with them on planning, instruction and reflection. Again, at the individual or partner teaching level, the team level, whether it's classroom team or grade level team, or cross grade level team, and the faculty level.
And we'll end with this little graphic, and then if you have questions, you can ask. While this graphic hopefully makes you chuckle a little bit, there's some honesty in this, right? Coaches really are this idea of building a team and collaborating, because the work that we do is incredibly important, but there are challenges that come along with that, and there's the complexities, as I mentioned earlier. So in all of that, don't worry, a coach has got your back. They are here to support and help. So with that, if there are any questions, we can speak to. Yes?
Of course there are questions, you know us. So one of the things you had mentioned with using iReady as the data, but we only use iReady 3 times a year. So then how do you supplement the information to kind of know that it's working, that the changes that you're making are effective, and so forth?
So iReady is a good temperature check. We do that 3 times a year, but we use multiple measures of data a lot with the classroom as well. So over the last 4 years in math, I've worked with a lot of the teams in consistent grade level chapter or unit assessments. So we put a lot of stock in how over the course of time they are doing on those. We're getting into item analysis on those. And then iReady we use, again, as that temperature check 3 times a year, but we're constantly monitoring how the classroom performance is going. We also have fact fluency data coming in via reflex, and that certainly leads. Fact and fraction fluency are huge indicators for success in algebra. So these are all measures that we're constantly looking at. We have Rti meetings regularly. Classroom, the team gets together and talks about observations. So do you have anything to add? I know there's a lot of ELA data as well, right? Words their way, Fontes and Pinnell.
Yes, we use Words Their Way and Fontes and Pinnell for writing their pre and post assessments per unit where teachers are examining student writing. We also have anecdotal notes that we take on student reading, running records, and progress monitoring notes on students for the particular skill that they're working on.
You mentioned Fontes and Pinnell. In looking at the data that we've seen in previous years, I know it takes a lot of time and it isn't necessarily accurate. Is there another standard? I mean, it was showing us data that said 80% of our students are proficient.
It is just one of the pieces of data that we use.
I have a couple questions. Whenever Michelle, you talked about culture. Whenever you try and change culture in a school, you have early adopters and then you have basically resistors. I was wondering what percentage we're at.
I don't think I can give you a percentage, but we certainly do. But our motto is that we never give up. So yes, we started off the school year with our friends and, oh, please let me come into your room, and the word spread, and then those teachers that were warm to us coming in, we just stop in every week. How's it going? What can I do for you? And I'm so proud because I just got into a classroom that I've been trying to get in since September. So it's just, we don't give up and we keep those conversations going, and sometimes it just takes doing simple little tasks for that teacher for them to build that trust, and that little task turns into, oh yes, I'm coming in tomorrow to model a lesson. So.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good approach.
And I think the student focus really helps to remind everyone that the focus is students and student learning and improve student learning. So when we communicate, it's about students in the class. So what are they learning? What could impact or change that learning? So it's not, we're coming in to watch you. It's the way it's communicated goes a long way.
I appreciate that, but I also wonder, since you guys are experienced teachers, I'll say, you have to reflect inside and say, geez, how would I feel about this particular model? Michelle, I believe you talked about working with a specific team. I was just wondering, oh no.
Laura?
That's
Laura, yeah, I'm sorry.
We go up Laura to teams.
What level was that at, and how many people were involved? Just so I have a sense of how many.
Well, I'll be more general about the
Intermediate. It was intermediate grade level.
It was intermediate, and it was a team of teachers, so it was not just the classroom teachers, but also special educators, teaching assistants.
Oh, right. No specific grade, one or first and second grade, something like that?
Well, it has been multiple grades, but out of confidentiality to the teachers.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it generally.
Okay. My last question is, do you plan on giving us further updates, Todd, as the year goes along? Maybe just a wrap up at the end or something to see how it goes.
Absolutely, yes.
I'm more interested actually, because I'm starting to appreciate this model. I wouldn't have enjoyed it. I closed the door and didn't want anybody in my room. But I was an ancient person. I'd really like to make sure that you're working with the people that are resisting change. That's all. Thank you.
So we can certainly provide updates, absolutely. And this will continue to evolve as well. So even the work that was done the first 2 months of school, so when I met with the coaches the very end of summer before the start of school, we put an emphasis at the start of the year very much around supporting our new teachers, because that's another piece of this. We didn't speak to it specifically, but as we have a higher number of new teachers, we want to make sure that we are retaining the best folks. So part of that is support. So in terms of evaluation, I was having a conversation with the other day, new teacher, saying that she talks to her friends and family members that are teaching other places, and nobody feels as supported as she does in this district in the role that she has. Part of that is because the coaches have been supporting her. So those little anecdotes, I think, are also important in terms of evaluating and determining how the model is going. But the beginning of the year was very much making sure we support our new teachers, making sure we work on the process of data collection and getting data in a place in a way that can be better utilized by teachers, and also supporting our interventionists. A lot of that was the start of the year. It continues, supporting interventionists, supporting new teachers, working on data, but as some of that has been the foundation has been set, their focus has shifted to be more in classrooms and visiting with individual teachers. And then the other piece I just want to mention, which I'm just echoing what they said, even for teachers that aren't quite open or quite there yet in terms of working in this model, the benefit is still there from the team level and the full faculty level with all the work that they are doing. So when they meet with the team, it is the full team. So even if they're not visiting every single teacher on that team in one day, because that's not possible either, but there's that collective benefit as they work together as a team as well. So just some other thoughts, but absolutely we can continue to give updates and answer questions as they come up.
A couple of questions, I think. First, I think Ms. Cootie mentioned just how big of a change this is. And it sounds like you have the model up and running now, which is impressive. I don't know how long these things take, but given that I think you're creating a new structure and a new paradigm, wouldn't have been surprised if it took a long time. So it's great to hear that you already kind of have it up and running and have some successes to share, as you said. I think that's fantastic. One question, which I think Todd touched on, but if you just talk a little more about kind of self-evaluation of your model and the work. I assume periodically you're going to be looking at what's working, what could be done differently, and not even just necessarily from what's working or maybe not working as well, but the circumstances are changing. What's next? How do we evolve this, as you said? Can you talk to that process, how frequently you're doing it and what's involved?
Very frequently, because one of our goals was that communication piece and to establish a reflective practice of our own. Because the only way that this model can be effective is to evolve to the needs of students, but then also the needs of teachers, while we're all continuously improving. So we have to embrace that as well. So we meet regularly as a team with Todd. The three of us meet every 2 weeks. We also meet every month as an administrative unit with Peter and Matt and Todd and us. We also meet regularly with our Questar colleagues, which has been fabulous, because just like throwing open the doors of a classroom and being able to visit and talk with peers and see, we get to do that with a coach that goes to all different districts. So, and then we are participating in professional development with Heidi Brownlee and also Karen Kohler. So all of the things that we have been trying to put into place with our model with teachers, we have tried to put into place with us.
That's great. I think that's it. Just thank you for, like Todd said, stepping up to do what you're doing and for reporting today.
Thank you.
Welcome, and it's a great approach. Obviously, different paradigm. You had, Todd, you had mentioned about a student focus on data. Do you also have a student group that you work with that sometimes they input some stuff with you, or is it just focusing on their performance data?
So you mean like a focus group of students just to get their feedback?
Yes.
For the purpose of coaching, no, we have not. So remember, this is also K through, or pre-K through 6th grade that the coaches are focusing on. So no, the short answer is no. Do we get student feedback and input in other ways? Yes, but specifically around coaching, no.
Okay, and then finally, in your experience, obviously this size school, this isn't the first time you've tried to do this coaching paradigm. As far as when you expect change, you know, you have to be patient in order to get change. I'm sure it takes some time for people to accept and also to open up to collaboratively work together. How are we doing as compared to like a typical model that you've had experience prior to Greenville?
So I will say in terms of the work that we've done already this fall, we are further along than I thought we would even be at the midway point of this year of just starting to make sure everybody has a shared understanding of what the coach's role is, and that focus around curriculum instruction and data. So we will continue to work on that, but for me personally, when I look at the work that they've done and the work that we've done already this year, we are going at a really great pace. I don't know if that answers your question directly. In terms of, do we see results? Absolutely. In terms of, again, I'll reference the conversation I had with the new teacher the other day, or I know they've all had conversations with teachers that have aha moments when they're working with them individually. Those are really important successes to make sure we celebrate. Is it the exact student, you know, every kid is proficient and we're 100%? No, that's not where we are. Is that what we're working towards and the goal? Absolutely. My microphone hates me all of a sudden. But in terms of working towards that and all these little successes along the way, it's important that we acknowledge those and celebrate them. And those are happening, absolutely.
Absolutely, thank you. I appreciate it.
Wait. Everybody else got a turn. All right, so first of all, I want to say thank you for the presentation, and I appreciate everything that you're doing. That you're doing something that has not been done before, so it's a brand new thing, and you can't look at last year to see how you're doing. So, with that being said, and I'm a data person who's driven by metrics, and Todd already just said you guys are ahead of where he expected you to be. So what's the baseline that you're making your measurement against, and how do you know how far you've gone? Because so far I've heard a lot of subjective stuff, but where's the objective measurement? Yeah. And I apologize for the hard question.
No, we expected it, it's okay. So I think we always have to be aware that multiple measures are important, and it's quantitative, but it's also qualitative. The things that we're mentioning, it's the qualitative data, right? It's the perception, it's the culture, it's the feeling of support. That is really critically important, because if you don't have that, you're not going to get your quantitative. All research shows us if you don't have these qualitative positive factors in place, you're never going to get the quantitative results that you desire or that we should strive for. So short term, yeah, these are those qualitative measures that we are looking for and taking a pulse on. Quantitative, is there an exact by this date? No, but again, the results and the data analysis that they're doing as a team, when we do the mid-year checkpoint with iReady, using that as a specific measure, that will give us more quantitative data in terms of how we're doing overall for the year. We will then reflect that into the coaching process of, hey, in the coaching process, where can we take the areas that we need to work on the most? We've already done this with phonics, right? We've acknowledged that that's an area we need to work on. Both Michelle and Laura mentioned, that wasn't just a random choice of let's focus on phonics, that came from our data. So it's all about how do we use that data to inform the work that the coaches are doing. Anybody add anything? No? Okay.
That's okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I send more questions if I have them in the future?
Absolutely.
To you?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, so as was mentioned, we meet at least weekly, if I don't track them down daily. So yes, absolutely, if there's further questions, we can address them and get them back to you.
I think there would be a benefit, like, okay, so we go through with the quantitative, and eventually then we'll be able to put measures for the quantitative after we have the qualitative. So do you feel that by maybe next year, then you'd be able to provide a baseline to say, okay, this is where we're at in looking at it by grade level, and this is what our goal is, so that we can measure ourselves against that?
So we already have that, right? In all of our improvement plans, we have baseline data of where we are and where we've been. The work that the coaches are doing, right back to what I started with New York State, this is one area that New York State has identified for growth and improvement. here is a strategy or an intervention that you can utilize. It's research-based. So the work that the coaches are doing, it's already all connected. That really hard, like, perfect causation, we did this, so it caused that to happen, is near impossible to identify in education. What we're looking at is across the board, across the district, in our improvement plans, where have we been? We have that. And in our improvement plans, all our goals, whether they're goals set by the state or goals that we set locally, those are already all there. We're just working the coaches into getting us to that place.
So then that answers your question, Eric. I'm really confused because I thought we said we didn't have it, but now we do have it. So I'm kind of confused. Do we have it?
Well, we have goals set, right? We have targets and goals set as a district across the whole district. In terms of what in there can we point directly back to the coaches, they are one piece of a very large, complex puzzle, right? So in terms of a specific question of when will we have quantitative data that the coaching model has resulted in X, that's really hard to establish. It's more, how did the coaching model, along with all these other pieces that we are working on to bring consistency to the work that we do in curriculum, instruction, assessment environment, what role did they play and what role can they play to make sure we continue down that path of improvement?
Okay.
So it's, again, one piece of a bigger puzzle, I think.
Okay.
I think the model really accelerates and strengthens the.
It's like a grab my mind. That's a better way to say
It
it.
accelerates and it strengthens the ongoing continuous improvement efforts. Because with us being able to work in the classrooms, but also as liaisons horizontally and vertically, and with the data, and being able to work with teams to inform instruction, it really just strengthens all of the fabric that the continuous improvement efforts are woven on, and we just run through that fabric. So I think that's why it's so difficult to answer the here's X and then here's your data here, because it's woven in.
Yes, thank you.
2 quick follow-ups. First, I heard that you guys are looking at data and that that's going to be a touchstone for you, and I share the concern about where there's data to track and use for feedback, if you will. We'd like to hear about that too. At the same time, when you're ready to present that data or talk about it, I still would like to hear the qualitative side too. I understand that that is really foundational to your work, and so we'd like to also hear how that's going. What's been happening. Reporting back on that too, I understand it's more subjective, qualitative, but I also hear that's an important part of the work, so I'd like to hear about that too. And then at the end of the year, I don't know if there was a plan to do this or not, but at the end of the year, at a time when it makes sense, if we could just have a recap on the year, look back, how did it go, what were the successes, what do you think, what's your vision for the next step next year to carry forward? I think that'd be really useful.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Keep up the great work. Change is always difficult, and we really appreciate what you're doing. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the action items. For the next, we are going to combine 6.1 through 6.5. So approve the minutes from the board meetings as of November 15th, November 22nd, November 30th, December 1st, December 2nd, all this year, 2021. So could I have a motion to approve the minutes from these dates?
Eric and Jim, thank you.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the finance reports for the month ending November 30th, 2021.
Duncan and Jay, thank you.
Duncan, David.
Yeah, we got that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to accept the Committee on Special Education recommendations.
Eric.
Okay. Any discussion? I just want to say I'm going to recuse myself from this vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Need a motion to approve the personnel agenda.
Eric?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the Greenville Central School District Health and Welfare Services contracts for Grapeville Christian School for the 21-22 school year.
Jenny? Eric, thank you.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to appoint Bonadio and Company LLP Certified Accountants as external auditors for fiscal years ending June 30th, 2022 through June 30th, 2026. It is a 5-year contract.
Okay, Eric, thank you.
Okay, any discussion?
I have a question, Tracy. It just goes to the timing, this is a 5-year contract, is that correct?
I believe it is. Yes, it says required every 5 years.
Does that mean that we're required to issue an RFP every 5 years, or we're required to have a 5-year?
We are required to do an RFP every 5 years. You're not required to change the auditor. You're required to have an RFP every 5 years.
Right. I have no concern with the auditor or this contract. I just more want to understand the thinking behind having a 5-year contract versus doing it more frequently. I mean, today, we might get better pricing, I would think, if we're locking in for 5 years. That might not always be the case. So, is there any particular?
Comfortable with it?
Okay.
We reviewed the offerings, and this was the best deal, and it looked great.
Okay. Thanks.
I was just curious about, I think the increase every year, it's not the same. Like, I think that it's less the first year, but then afterwards, I think it goes up slightly.
Fact.
Okay, all right. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Need a motion to approve the proposal for SCI Design Group District Architects for the federal funds project in the amount of $60,000 plus reimbursable expenses.
Okay, Jim, thank you.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the proposal for SCI Design Group District Architects for the 2022 Building Condition Survey and 5-year plan in the amount of $22,610.
Eric? Second? Jim,
Any-
thank you.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Jim?
Oh.
Thank you.
Okay. I need a motion to approve the proposal from CT Mail Associates for services pertaining to the field work and mapping of underground utilities at the proposed location for the middle school, high school pavilion in the amount of $6,950.
Eric? Second, Jim, thank you.
Any discussion?
I just wanted, this is for where the pavilion's supposed to be there, or there?
Over
Right,
by the
okay.
cafeteria.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the substitute food service rate of pay of $13.20 and on January 1st, 2022.
Okay, Eric, thank you.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve an overnight field trip.
Jay and Eric.
Any discussion?
Can we get a description?
It says the 2022 FFA Member Leadership Service Conference in Syracuse.
Is that the New York State?
No, the New York State one is in September.
Okay.
So, and
I have no objection, I just wondered where they're going.
This one used to be called something 360, and they just renamed it, so it's a leadership conference that they have each year in Syracuse.
So this is something that they've been doing for many years, but I did not realize the name change. Okay, thank you. Any other discussion?
I have a question. I assume that, you know, as with the last trip or any other field trips, it would be considering that the district's COVID guidelines have to be followed during the trip. Is that correct?
That is correct. This is an overnight trip, and the same requirements of the past overnight trip will be in place.
Okay.
And they understand that.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? All in favor?
Aye. Tracy, before you move on.
Yes.
I had a question for Janet on her treasury report. I don't know if it's proper to go backwards, because we already had a vote on it. I can ask the same question next month.
I'm fine with asking the question,
I don't know
definitely
if it's out of order.
procedurally.
It's okay.
Okay.
All right. On your,
Can you turn your mic on?
oh, sure. Because everybody wants to hear me. I only had one simple question. On your revenue summary, and I'll let you get there. Under the interest and penalties on taxes, can you just tell me, do you think that that's, it might be right off the top of your head, or maybe you can say, I have no idea. Is all that mainly from commercial properties, or is it from?
Individual.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I want for now. Thank you.
But you can also say, looking back, it's no higher than past years.
Yeah.
It's not. We look at that every year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Janet.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to discussion. And 7.1, the Instructional Program Initiative, new program proposal, Introduction to Textiles. Todd Hilgendorf, Director of Curriculum, Instruction and Assessment, and Jamie Peklak?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, FACS teacher. Welcome.
Thanks. So I'm here with Ms. Peklak tonight to share some information on an instructional program proposal, which really that means a new course. So I'm going to provide a little bit of history and current situation, or current where we're at for course offerings, and then Jamie is going to speak to the course that she's proposing for next school year. So Family and Consumer Sciences, on the screen, this is what we currently have at middle school and also at the high school. So at the middle school, FACS is woven into our CTE program. So the board has heard recent presentations over the past couple of years of how we shifted and redesigned our CTE programming 6 through 8. So Family and Consumer Science is part of CTE programming at 7th and at 8th grade. And it's 0.25 units, which basically that means a student has it for the equivalent of 10 weeks, so 1 marking period. They actually have it every other day for half the year, but it's the equivalent of 10 weeks of FACS in 7th grade, and then the same is true at 8th grade. So part of the work that we did when we revamped what happens at the middle school, the bigger conversation was looking at CTE programming from the middle school and into the high school. And I know I've shared this before, but some of the reflection that we did when we looked at that programming that led to the redesign of the middle school was we had programming in the middle school for FACS, but not so much, or not so many electives at the high school. The flip was true. We didn't really have much ag built into our middle school programming for CTE, but we had a number of electives at the high school. So one of the things we've been trying to do is balance the experiences and the opportunities that students have in middle school, and then what does that feed into at the high school level. So now that we have FACS as part of 7th and 8th grade, looking at the high school, Ms. Peklak is now in a 1.0 full-time equivalent, so a full-time position. Previously, this position was not full-time. So by creating that full-time position and looking to next year, we have additional opportunities to bring back some electives that haven't been offered in recent years, but also look at the program from a larger perspective and find areas to add something new and different. So currently at the high school, we have 1 section of child development and psychology. That's a full credit course that students take. And we have 1 section, it's a half credit of food preparation and nutrition. So for next year, what we're looking at is adding another food and nutrition course that builds off that food and preparation, but at a higher level. And that's similar to what we've had in the past, just bringing it back. Something new and different, so we actually do keep a catalog of courses that have been offered at Greenville. I think our current catalog goes back to like 1983. So when we looked back in time, in terms of textiles, we couldn't find anything in recent history, and by that I mean like the past couple of decades. So that's a good chunk of time when you think of that. That really looked at textile and fashion in a way that Jamie has been thinking about and doing something different next year. So that's what we're here to share tonight, a new course proposal. Our process for this, a new course proposal, is it's a conversation that really comes from a teacher that's looking at the program that they're working in, having conversations with their department, which Jamie has certainly done with the CTE department, and our department chair, Dee Lewis, incorporates the principal and myself talking about, okay, what is possible and what can we incorporate in looking at potential next year different elective. So all of this comes together in a proposal that comes to the board because it is a new course. And yes, it's now in the year, but this is actually looking to add this as an elective option for next school year, the 22-23 school year. So kind of just setting the stage. With that, I will turn it over to Jamie to talk about her VAX program.
So I am super excited to be here at Greenville for my first year here and to have the opportunity to help build the program back to a full-time program with more electives for our high school students and more opportunities for them to explore a different pathway in family and consumer sciences. So up on the board right now is the pictures of our amazing VAX space, which is very new to the district. And it opens the door for lots of opportunities to really encourage project-based group learning, and we had a really great time working with the classroom we're given. So the proposed course is going to be called Introduction to Textiles. The purpose of the course is to offer students a new pathway to explore the areas of textiles. And really, we're looking to run the course, or my vision for the course is for it to be very project-based, to allow individuals, students, to explore different areas that might interest them. From merchandising to design to apparel construction, really getting a broad range of opportunities for our students to explore things that haven't been offered here for a while or maybe ever. So for the standards, the national FACT standards, we're demonstrating general operational procedures. I can barely read that. Evaluate elements of textile apparel and fashion merchandising. Demonstrate skills needed to produce, alter, repair fashion apparel and textile products. Demonstrate fashion apparel and textile design skills. Evaluate fiber and textile products and materials. And analyze career paths within the textile, apparel, and design industries. So like I said, really my vision for the course is to make that a project-based course where each individual student will be given the foundation of lots of different aspects of textiles and the industry that goes to textiles, but they can really individualize their path on where they want to take it. Whether I have a student who is looking, into the more interior design aspect, the fashion design, or if they're actually looking at the fibers and the manufacturing. So it will give us lots of opportunities to explore different areas and different pathways within the textile industry. So like Todd had mentioned, we're looking at rolling this out, if approved, for the next school year. It will be a half-year course and will be offered 2 times is what we're hoping. We can further evaluate, so we would spend the rest of this year planning and creating curriculum, and then we could further evaluate the outcomes at the end of next school year to see what our enrollment and our interest for our student body was. And for budget, we have the budget's listed at the bottom. I'm really hoping I've worked with a person from Tech Valley who has been amazing in coming up with some ideas, and she has some great ideas on bringing in some like refashioning and using items that we already have and making them into repurposing things. So I really think we can do a lot with the budget that we have too. So if anybody has any questions about the course, feel free to ask.
I would think that the hat maker would have some questions.
I have a couple of questions. I have a couple of questions. It's more on the, I guess, the form.
Okay.
So on, I guess, page 3, I don't know, where it talks about results and so forth. Right now it says the program could be reviewed by CTE department, administration, the head of curriculum. In terms of data, class numbers and interest can be used to determine the population the course is serving and so forth. Like, is there a way that we could put some specifics to it? So,
sure.
I don't know, you know, over 3 years we want to have, I'm making this up, 20 students go through it and something, I mean, just something so that we could actually.
Something more specific on number-wise for class enrollment. Is that what you're asking for?
Right, so I personally love this, and I know that my youngest daughter would have signed up and taken it multiple times. I think it's a fabulous idea, and it's something that we don't have currently. So thank you. I think it's great, but in order to be able to assess a new course, I think that we would want something measurable. And we can have a combination of quantitative and qualitative, so.
Yeah. And some of that will be looking, as we do every year with our CTE courses, part of it is based on student interest that year. So there might be a year that Jamie has 2 sections of this because there's just a large interest at that time. And 2 years later, there might not be any students that are interested in that, but she has a whole bunch of students really interested in food, so she's going to have more sections in food. So part of that is just the balance of CTE courses and what is of most interest at this moment in time for the students that are coming through, but certainly over time to look at, we don't want a textile course with 2 kids and that opportunity not being taken advantage of. So I think that's the other piece, just balancing and looking at the numbers. But I wouldn't want to set a target of, we're going to have 20 kids go through it over the next 2 years, because she might have 1 full section next fall, and then that might be it for a year or so, if that's, you know, kind of serves the purpose of students that are interested. But the items that are listed here, we can work some of the language of just some more specific examples, certainly.
But I think it needs to be a little more in the sense of, I don't know, attendance or, I don't know. It just seems so vague. So how do we assess and know if we're being successful? Because I want us to be successful. My thoughts.
My turn? Okay. So when I went through the form and I was reading it and so forth, one of the things that I was very happy to see, because it's a brand new course and so forth, you said you're going to do a curriculum, right?
Yes.
Perfect. So then you can tell whether or not things are going and so forth. And this goes back to a previous board discussion where you had said you were going to do standards-based grading and so forth. Would this be an opportunity to do that? Versus, you call out you're going to do grading. I'm just wondering if this would be an opportunity to do that type of grading instead of the standard numeric that we do right now. And in the past, and I mean, it's probably been a decade, oh my gosh, my kids were a long time ago.
Time goes quick, Eric.
Yeah, I know. We had this thing, and I looked at it when I was with Gifted and Talented. We called it would be prototyped for a year. Is this being prototyped for this first year, or is it going to be in the catalog now from now on?
Good question. The idea is it would be added to the catalog from now on.
Okay.
It might shift and adapt, and as Jamie mentioned, she's really trying to build it around project-based learning. So truly 1 year she might have students that are more interested in the fashion approach, so the course gets more focused around that. Other years you might have students that are more interested in the science of textiles. I don't know, right? Different years it might look a little different, but the idea is it would be added as an option in the course catalog. Again, CTE, we have the most elective offerings within our CTE department, so we're always looking at what's in the current catalog. Are there things that can kind of sunset away because there's not an interest there anymore? Are there new things in this case that we haven't offered that we want to try to add to that offering? But yes, the idea is it would be added to the catalog.
Okay.
The question about grading, I love that you asked that question, so thank you. I have not had that specific conversation with Jamie. We can certainly do that. Jamie did reference that she's worked already with Sarah Feiss, who's a professional development specialist from Tech Valley, who specializes in project-based learning. Another piece of that is standards-based grading that goes along with project-based learning. There's a whole complexity around that because when you do project-based, again, every student could truly develop a project that is different from their peer. So the actual content of what they're learning could be very different because they chose a project going down this path, somebody else picked one going down this path. What are the underlying skills that you want to develop? It's research skills, it's application skills. That's where you then can build standards-based grading, but we haven't had that specific question, so we can talk about it.
I'm sorry I put the cart before the horse.
No, it's okay. Again, I love that you asked the question, so much appreciated.
So just also want to say this is great. It seems like a great idea. I'm always happy to see more options made available for students. So it's exciting to see the curriculum grow. The one question I have, and I apologize if this is repeating what Tracy asked, but honestly I wasn't sure where in the form she was referencing. So I'm looking on that form on page 3 under evaluation. Purpose, there's one box that says what is the purpose of the program that's filled out, and a second box that says what are the outcomes, that's empty. So just following up if you can, and honestly I don't care what the outcomes are. I mean I care, but like what you think the outcomes should be like for this purpose, you know, I don't know, I'm not going to suggest anything. I have no idea, it's not my place anyway. But if you could add something into it, you know, again in the same vein of, you know, having us understand what you'll be looking for in terms of outcome and purpose being met.
Yes, so part of this, just understanding this form, what's on the left-hand side is completed on the front end, so as we propose. What's on the right-hand side is meant as the evaluation, which is what I will work on with Jamie at the end of next year. So now that we've implemented this course, what are the actual outcomes? What are the actual results? But I think your question connects with Tracy's of, in the other box under results, what will we look for as results, which then tie into the outcomes as well. But that right box is blank on purpose. That's the idea of next spring, after we've implemented the course, the evaluation process.
Spring
Okay.
2023.
Spring 2023, correct.
Okay, well, that correction. I don't
That
have a
helps.
question.
Okay.
Just- Great job.
Anything else? Good.
So now
Thank you, Ms. Jamie.
go ahead, Todd. So now we're going to look at the accounting 2 to math standards.
Thank you.
Now joining me at the podium, round 3. Hello, Ms. Esposito. Thanks for joining us this evening. So, my final share tonight with Ms. Esposito. Grab that one. If you don't mind. Oh, I don't have slides for this. We're just going to talk. That's why I can't find slides. All right, so my last share tonight is something that's a little bit different, and that is looking at our current Accounting 2 course and providing it as an opportunity for students that complete both Accounting 1 and Accounting 2 to receive math credit. So this is actually a local decision that can be, through a process, reviewed and then approved by the school board to allow what's called a specialized course, in this case Accounting 2, to be reviewed and then provide students the opportunity to get credit in another area. So Linda is going to share some more information about the process that we've gone through, but the document that the board received gives you information about regulation, Part 100 regulation around specialized courses. And then under that is the section that describes the process by which a district can go through a review to determine if a course in one content area can be provided as course-bearing credit in another content area. In this case, Accounting 2, taught by a business certified teacher, Mrs. Esposito, being provided opportunity for students to receive a math credit. So students in high school need to have 3 credits of math for graduation. That's the state requirement. So this would be an opportunity to count as one of those 3 credits for students that complete Accounting 1 and Accounting 2. The other piece that I just want to mention before I turn over to Linda is we previously, 2 years ago? Yes, because that was the first time 2 years ago.
Right.
We went through a process with SUNY Cobleskill to have Accounting 2 reviewed by SUNY Cobleskill, and has been paired up with SUNY Cobbleskill's accounting course. So students that take this class have the opportunity to get SUNY credit through SUNY Cobleskill. So I mention that because this is a high-level rigorous course. It's accounting, the students have to take Accounting 1 and then take Accounting 2, so it's over 2 years. To the end of that second year that they can get the SUNY credit. This would now, again, provide them the opportunity locally to get a math credit on their transcript, one of those 3 math credits that are required. So that's that front page, just giving you information about regulation and the process. So the process is you have to do an internal review, reviewed by the departments, in this case CTE and then math, and then presented to the board for board approval. So with that, I will let Ms. Espo share a little bit of the work that she's done.
So this all started because a student in my Accounting 1 class asked, can we get math credit for this? And I don't even think that student needs to get math credit, but it was a question. So I went to Todd and said, I had a student ask me, is this something we can explore? And I think many years back, maybe students have asked and we just never pursued it. But I think we have more kids now looking for other ways to get math credit than we have in the past. So we kind of went for it.
And you've also revamped Accounting 2
Right.
in recent years to be just something different.
Right. Right. And, it's all on, an online platform, digital. We have a lot more resources than we had in the past with the new curriculum that we put in place and the new textbook. So I then took the accounting standards, which are National Business Education Association accounting standards that are linked to from state ed. So I took all those standards. I found a school district in Connecticut who also offers it for math credit. And I took their standards and matched them up with their math standards, and I matched them with the New York State standards and created this document and put all the standards in where they applied. We then took them to Heidi Bromley from Questar. She took my accounting book with her, and she went through it and she added some more standards that she knew of that fit into some of these categories. So that's the document that you have in front of you now. And we also met with the math department. They had lots of questions. Who's going to be teaching us? Still a business teacher, so don't, you're not going to have to teach this course. But they wanted to make sure that it was rigorous enough to count for math standards. And, when we showed them the document, they agreed that it was. Especially some of the extra things that we do, the forensic accounting activities where we use Excel. Kids have to learn to put in formulas, evaluate all the data, all that type of thing, which normally wouldn't have happened in a regular accounting course. So there's a lot more features that we delve into that wouldn't really be a normal high school accounting course. So it's more rigorous because of our partnership with Cobleskill.
Well, so I'll just mention that the document that Linda is referencing that the board, that was shared with the board, it lists out all of the standards that are covered in the Accounting 2 course. It does not show, everyone does not align directly with the math standard, right? There's other things in the accounting course that are not necessarily aligned with math standards. But in going through this process, the idea is a review that really asks the question, is there enough math content and enough alignment within the business accounting standards and the math standards to support it receiving a math credit? And the overall absolutely yes was from Linda certainly going through it, the math department reviewing it, myself reviewing it, and then Heidi Bromley as our math specialist through Questar. Those different layers, yes, this definitely rises to the level of enough math and rigorous math that we can provide the opportunity for students to get a math credit. So the last step in that process is the board reviewing and approving that yes, we, I don't know what the right word is, but we approve students getting math credit for this course locally. Any questions on this?
I'm just curious, is there something from state ed that says that you've matched everything up, or is it just the board who says you guys have done the right thing and it matches?
Correct. So on the front page of this, it's bullet number 2, New York State Education Department provides the opportunity to review specialized courses. Those bullet points came from communication that I had with somebody at state ed of what is the process to determine whether a course can count in both areas. And it's that idea of it can be locally determined after internal review and then board approval. But there's no single, the state doesn't then come in and check and verify. It's a local, we reviewed, local decision, locally supported. The state backs that up with the specialized course approval.
Okay, so I'm not an educator, so I don't know personally, other than sitting here. And my brother's the math expert, so I'm going to defer to him. I trust you guys.
Thank you. It's been a significant amount of work. Linda has put in a lot of time to really do due diligence to make sure, yes, what's in accounting really does match up with math standards.
We did also research other schools who offer it for math credit, so it's not, you know, we're not alone doing this. There are other school districts in New York State that offer it for math credit.
I thank you for recognizing the opportunity and kind of carrying it through to both of you. So thank you, because I think it will benefit students. It provides an alternative, and it's great.
And the fact that it started with the student asked Linda a question. I do like that part of this. That like, yeah, that's a good question. Let us look into that, and we will see what we can do.
And you know, I do have a student this year who needs another
This
math
will benefit
credit,
us.
and will benefit that student, and it will benefit some of the students who are in County 1 this year to take County 2 next year.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for doing the work to set this up. I think it will be beneficial to the students that want to go through it. And again, it's just creating more options for the students, which I think is great. So thank you. And you know, looking at the table here, I have no doubt that it was a lot of effort to put that together.
It's a lot of work.
But I do have one last question, because you triggered it with, I have a student right now. Is the intent to have this retroactively be a math credit for those who've already done it?
Not retroactive. If we,
No.
so, no, that's okay.
For students who are enrolled in it now, we would like to offer the math credit if they want to. I don't think we could do it retroactively.
So those who did it last year are just where they are?
Right.
Well, actually, we didn't have it last year, because accounting 2 is every other year, because they take accounting 1.
But,
yes.
but now this year we have accounting 1 and accounting 2, so, yeah, just to confuse things even more.
But- So last point, both Jamie's new course and this piece, tonight was the sharing it with the board, providing information. If there's additional questions, we can certainly follow up and get more information as needed. But they're on tonight for the discussion in this conversation. They'll be on for approval next month. So again, if there are additional questions, certainly ask. But with this one specifically, as long as the board approved it in January, then yes, any student taking it this academic year could receive the math credit.
Just to clarify from Eric's question, I think, did I hear you say that the accounting 1 and 2 are offered in staggered years? They're not offered?
It was this year because of
Multiple factors. We were able to offer both this
We were
year.
able to offer both because of some switch schedule.
Right. And there was a student interest to do so as well, which is a good thing, so.
And you said so the student or students in accounting 2 now would get credit if this is approved for this year, right? And then certainly
Right.
next year, will we be offering next year? Will it be accounting 1 only or 2 also?
Definitely accounting 2, because the current accounting 1 students, as long as there's enough of them interested in continuing on, would do accounting 2. The hope would be to offer accounting 1 and 2 every year, as staffing allows, as student interest allows, but that's the idea.
Okay. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Linda.
Okay, so now we are going to turn it over to Janet Masserman. for the budget development process, along with Tammy Sutherland, Superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, everybody received their budget binders today, and inside, if you look on the 12.6 tab, you'll see the budget development process booklet. So I'm just going to go over what this booklet is about, especially since we have some new board members. And this is also a good resource to look back for all the other board members that have been through this process several times. So looking at page 1, as a district, we continuously review the current budget. We monitor our expenses to stay within the budget and to avoid waste. We review needed staffing levels, which are based on enrollment, class size, and the needs of our students. We are checking our revenue sources monthly, and we explore where we can share services. For example, if there are new bus routes, we try to maximize what we currently have or reach out to neighboring schools to see if we can share transportation costs. This year has been a very difficult one with trying to find bus drivers. And Mary Judicus has been working very hard to combine bus routes so we can get the students here. Another shared service we have are the Inter-Municipal agreements for tuition students. At the January board meeting, I will be presenting the rollover budget. The rollover budget is when we roll over the expenses of the 21-22 school year into the 22-23 school year with increasing costs that are known or presumed. An example would be like salaries, the RFP for the external auditor, BOCES costs, retirement costs, utility and insurance costs. This is our starting point for our budget discussions. On page 2 starts the timeline we will be following for both expenditures and the revenue side of the budget. On page 3, we have quite a few considerations when developing the preliminary budget. We have union contracts expiring or that have expired, which we were putting estimates into the preliminary budget. We have retirement percentages that are increasing and are decreasing. We anticipate health insurance premium increases. We have debt service changes due to the old bus bond expiring and the new bus bond starting. According to our long-range bus replacement plan, we will have a bus proposition on the May ballot. At the end of March, we have to calculate the tax cap to see how much we are allowed to increase our tax levy. We also hope that by the beginning of April, we have our final state aid numbers. In the meantime, we will use projections released in January. With the federal money that we've been receiving, we are beginning to plan the funding needed to maintain staff going into the future. We hope with retirement breakage, we can start planning our budget with these increases. In the budget development process booklet, there are some appendices. Appendix A is how New York State wants all school districts to be uniform with their financial transactions. What the different funds are, how New York State wants the expenditure codes to look like. Appendix B explains the legal requirements for the budget process. Appendix C is a glossary. Appendix D is about state aid. Appendix E is about fund balance. Appendix F is our state aid factors. Appendix G is our budget summary for the past 5 years. And Appendix H is our tax levy and state aid summary for the past 5 years. Any questions? Yes?
Where would some of the federal funds, so what we get for, let's say, Title I through Title VI, Title IX, whichever, there's a whole litany.
The federal funds that I was talking about is the ARP money and the CRISA money, because they're only good for 3 years.
Right, but every year we get like Title I.
Yes.
So
I don't have to budget for that.
Okay, thank you.
They get recorded in the federal funds.
So I think during the budget process this year, we should just show how much federal money is coming in, but it's federal funds.
Okay, thank you. So you ready to be busy?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I'd like to turn it over to Tammy Sutherland, who's going to be talking about the COVID-19 testing update.
And I have invited Erin Dubois to assist with this overview. We did have 3 different opportunities for faculty and staff to attend with Erin and myself so that we could share out what is the mandate, the requirements, and how the district will perform the required testing. So actually Erin had put this little PowerPoint together that we shared with the staff, and I thought that this would be a good way to have her share what exactly was shared with the staff so that the board understands it all. So at this point, we'll turn it over to Erin, and then we'll answer any questions.
Thank you. So Wednesday, as Tammy said, December 1st, we had voluntary information sessions that we invited employees to attend. We tried to provide information and also anticipate some of the questions that employees would have. We started by just sharing what was the Department of Health Commissioner's determination that was made on September 2nd. And basically it's an overview which just is requiring schools to ensure that teachers, staff, school staff, including substitutes, participate in weekly testing for COVID. There is an opt-out for employees that provide documentation of being fully vaccinated. However, if an employee is not fully vaccinated or does not provide evidence of such, the determination says that the school must ensure that they are tested weekly. So in an effort for Greenville to ensure that our staff is testing weekly, the district partnered with Questar 3 BOCES and the Greene County Department of Health to offer free access to COVID testing here on campus once a week. So Questar secured Abbott by Next Now rapid antigen COVID test, and a Questar nurse will be on site weekly to perform the COVID testing for our employees who require the testing to meet the mandate. Testing is going to be conducted on Tuesdays in 2 locations, one location in the middle school, high school, the other one at the elementary school, and it is starting tomorrow.
Erin, is it kind of walk-in basis? Do people have appointment times? How does that work? I was just curious.
Basically, it's set up 3 hours at the middle school, high school, 2 hours at the elementary school. That allows the Questar nurse to also have time to set up the testing at each location, and also 15 minutes at the end of the testing to make sure that all the test kits, it's a 15-minute rapid card, so allow those test kits to cook and be read. So employees can go to either location on campus, and they're asked to go as their schedule allows. We, unfortunately, as a district, we're not able to provide a sub-coverage to allow each employee to go at a set time, so we're just asking employees to go to either location as their schedule allows. So for employees that are unable to test on site or who choose not to test on site, employees don't have to test here, they just need to provide documentation of being tested. They need to provide a test that was conducted by a healthcare professional, and they have to provide a result that includes the employee's name, date of birth, the date of collection, the date of the result, and the result all on one page. So for some of our employees who have a second job that requires testing, for our substitutes who will eventually be included in the testing, we're not asking people to test more than once. It's just showing proof of that weekly testing.
Erin, 2 questions before
Sure.
we move on. One, is there still an opportunity for free testing in the area? I think at one point there were places nearby you could go to. Is that still true?
Right now, Greene County has a mobile testing site that they've been moving around. It was in Catskill. I believe actually starting the 10th, it's going to be in Coxsackie, near the Cumberland Farm. So they are moving that around, and that is providing free tests for school staff, but also folks that have been exposed. It's being provided for students who need a test in order to return to school. So there are other options.
And so, but it's not surveillance testing.
Correct.
It's you're either symptomatic or you've been exposed, and for quarantine. It's not to do like a required once a week.
Okay. Okay. Thanks for that clarification, Tammy. And one other question about the results. Are you saying that, I know for some tests you get a printout from the lab with the results. Is that the kind of one pager that the district requires, or is it, could it just be a note from, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, I interrupted you, go ahead.
I was going to ask, could it be a note, like a handwritten note from a doctor or other medical professional?
What I'm looking for is the actual test result, so that I can, but if it was certainly from a medical professional and said that it was negative and the date, yeah, I would accept that for sure. But what I'm looking for is typically when you have a test, you get a printout or something that you can sign on onto your screen and get a screenshot that shows the negative test results. I receive them all the time now for folks that have been symptomatic and need to have a test to return to work.
Okay.
So we anticipated some questions that employees might have. So we did a little bit of a Q&A. One of the questions was, why are only unvaccinated employees being tested? The answer to that is the district is truly just following the regulations outlined in the commissioner's determination, which only requires employees who are not vaccinated to get tested weekly. People that are vaccinated can opt out of testing. Is the district requiring employees to be vaccinated? We understand that that's a concern for some of our staff, and try to reassure folks that we are not requiring folks to be vaccinated. We are simply trying to meet the requirements set forth in the commissioner's determination. And that this testing requirement is for all school districts across New York State. There was a question about why particular locations were chosen. Availability and space in our district is not a new challenge for us. We were trying to select locations on both sides of campus to try to make it more convenient for employees. We tried to find locations where there was some level of privacy, meaning that it was a closed room with a door. There are some different ideas about other spaces that we might look into. For example, maybe the use of the stage, but we would start to look into those kind of spaces after the holiday season and concerts are over. So when will students be given the option to be tested? So we're starting surveillance testing on our employees. When we have the capacity to do so, we'll scale up the program to include substitutes, because that is part of the determination. And then as long as we have the capability and the testing supplies, we will scale it again and offer it to parents the option to have their children tested if they elect to do so. If the capacity exists, we'll also try to roll our athletic testing that we perform every week also into this program. What happens if employees are not tested? Staff that aren't tested on campus on Tuesday need to provide a written documentation of a COVID test performed by a healthcare provider or their own medical professional at the employee's cost. What if an employee refuses to test? Obviously we're hoping that that's not something that's going to become a reality, but if a staff member is not vaccinated and they don't participate in the weekly testing, they render themselves ineligible to continue to work for the district. Can an employee request an exemption? So yes, a staff member may request an exemption. but the district is legally required to implement the COVID testing requirement, and at this time, that does not provide for exemptions for medical or religious reasons. Why aren't we randomly testing employees? This is actually a question that Superintendent Sutherland has raised to our local Department of Health representatives, and have asked them to consider random testing. At this time, however, we need to follow the regulations, which is to test all unvaccinated employees. Why were the Abbott rapid antigen cards selected? Quest Rti BOCES and Greene County Department of Health, in consultation with district superintendents, really talked about ways to utilize the county grant funds and decided to purchase the rapid antigen cards to support the funding in the Questar schools. I think some of it may have also been because there was some familiarity with those rapid antigen cards, because those are the tests that we've been using for athletic testing when we started to do so last year. So those were basically our prepared slides. There were some questions from the floor. One that came up that we discussed was the New York State paid COVID leave, because one of the concerns from employees is, what if I test positive, and concern about isolation and quarantine. And so I answered questions about how many times can you access that leave, and when and under what conditions can you access that leave. Do you have anything else to add? No?
Aaron, I have a question.
Sure.
Is there some, do you sense that there's some confusion with the words mandate and regulations? It doesn't use the word law, but in reality, that's what it is, correct?
I think there's some confusion because we use all those terms kind of interchangeably oftentimes in public education, and it's not a law, but it's not something that we as a district have a choice in doing. So that did come up in one of the sessions about, what does this mean? What does it mean when it's the commissioner's determination? Is it a mandate? Is it a law? Is it a regulation? And yeah, I think there is some confusion, but we really tried to explain to folks that this is not a choice.
Okay. And then is there a cost to the district for these tests?
There is not.
Okay.
These test kits and funding for the nurses that are hired by Questar, this is all coming from county grant funds. The district is not purchasing those test kits nor paying Questar or the county for the nurse that comes on campus on Tuesdays. In fact, there's been money provided to the district to help offset the cost for the district, because we're going to need to have someone there with that nurse to help facilitate the testing process. Do you have anything else you want to add to that? Nope. Nope.
No, that was a good job too.
Okay. Other questions?
Erin, I had a question when you had mentioned that if you do test positive and then getting paid, like, how does that work?
So New York State paid COVID leave allows employees to access it up to 3 times. The first time you access the leave, you can access the leave if you are exposed to someone who's COVID positive and DOH issues an order of quarantine, or if you yourself test positive and DOH issues an order of isolation. The second and third time that leave can be accessed is only if you yourself test positive yourself, not due to an exposure.
Thank you.
It's a different topic, but
sure.
The athletic testing is independent. Is that still ongoing also?
It is at this time. We're going to continue to do athletic testing separately. This will begin happening tomorrow. We also will have athletic testing tomorrow morning. Eventually, when we know that we have the capability in time for this Questar nurse to do athletic testing, as well as test kits and supplies, then hopefully that will all roll in together. That's the hope.
Okay.
But we're going to continue to, we're going to start to implement this tomorrow. We're going to watch it and just scale it up as we are able.
So as we observe the capacity of the testing, if the athletic can move into that testing, it will.
Correct.
I think one thing I would add is, right now, because everyone, of course, is ordering supplies. So Questar just received another part of their order. So right now they're confident that they have a 2-month supply for Rensselaer, Columbia, Green districts. So obviously we need more to keep coming in a timely manner, or there will be a pause. So just let everyone know, that's the capacity that Aaron keeps talking about, is having the tests.
And I have, I'm sorry, one question. We had talked in the past, so currently for the winter sports, we're testing once a week.
That's correct.
Okay, was it earlier, or we had?
It's always been once a week.
Okay.
Students
Tuesdays.
only need to get tested once a week, but we have 2 days of testing, athletic testing, in order for us to test all the athletes. So we usually test 2 mornings, but they only have to come 1 time.
And those are typically Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
We changed it to
Monday and
Tuesdays.
Tuesdays. It was Tuesday and Wednesdays for sure.
Aaron, do we know, I don't know if it's possible, do we know the percentage of our staff that's vaccinated?
I didn't figure it out to a percentage. I do know how many folks that we're expecting tomorrow. And I would say really roughly, what do we say, about a third?
We were guessing. We have to make that calculation. We were guessing around 30%, but we have the information that we can make that calculation.
Do we have contingency plans if there's a problem tomorrow?
Contingency plans because, I mean, we are
A third of the third is,
it's a lot of folks that we're going to get through, hopefully that we will need to have them go through this 5 hours of testing.
okay, that's right, yeah. So it'll be a while before you find out what the status is.
Just a couple more general questions about COVID. We're not now going a little farther afield from what we were talking about, but one question is, we've seen how positivity rates in Greene County and Albany County and surrounding areas have gone up and down over time. I think now it seems that they're going back up, and I know you probably don't want to have shifting guidelines. But at what point do the numbers increase, the positivity rates increase to the point where you do try to do something different or think that something stricter might be needed? Or is that just, based on what we've seen so far, unlikely to happen, except in some sort of really serious scenario?
So I don't know what you mean by stricter. I know that both the governor and everyone is saying that they want schools open, period. So this is the step that they're taking to ensure that. I can say that Greene County rates are going up. We get the updates twice a week in my meetings, and I've already forgot today's was probably 6 or 7% from Greene County. I still think as a district itself, we're doing okay. I don't see spread on site. We see spread in homes, and those are the students at our home. And same with the adults. We see the exposure happening outside of school. I really haven't traced any that I can definitely say that happened on site. So I'm comfortable still. I would tell you that Aaron's tired, other people are very tired. It's continuous. It was 3 over the weekend. That takes a lot of time. I don't think people realize the nurses are tired, that there's that cost that I'm probably even more concerned about.
Yeah, and by stricter, I don't have anything specific in mind. I certainly don't want to go back to remote. I think it's much better to have everyone here. But at the same time, I think as rates go up, there may be a threshold where you take a look and say, what can we do now? But that's fine. I'm satisfied with what you said. Thank you. One other question, though, is if I understand correctly, and please correct me if I don't, beginning of the year, I think that if a student was out sick, like I don't know if it was because they had to leave school because they were ill or they were home just sick, symptoms, whether cold, flu, or something else, before coming back, they needed a test. If I understand correctly, that's no longer needed, is that right?
If they go home sick, they still need to provide proof or have a physician's. But I will tell you that, and you can add after, is I have been talking about the machines that the nurse's office was going to get for the point of care. And they were going to be for symptomatic students and or adults that became symptomatic during the day. We don't want you to come in to school if you're symptomatic. Those machines have arrived. They were handed to the nurse's offices, I believe, last week. Last week, they also did their required training on it. So I would anticipate in the next couple weeks, we will begin that. Again, that's something that parents have to agree to. But I think that listening to other districts that were able to start it a little earlier, that's been welcomed for some parents because right away you know that's not what it is and that they don't have to go home and find some place to have a test. But you know, usually they're going home because they are sick, but it's been from other districts saying it's been a positive. So we hope to roll that out soon. Anything else?
No.
Okay.
Okay. But for students who are, I mean, say just over the weekend they get sick, miss a day or two of school, they don't need a test to come back, right? Is that different?
If a student has any of the COVID symptoms, they need to see their healthcare provider and either provide an alternative diagnosis by their healthcare provider or have a COVID test.
Symptoms meaning cold-like or flu-like symptoms?
Cold and flu are COVID symptoms. There's a lot of COVID symptoms, runny nose, fever, fatigue. I mean, there's a whole list.
Right. That's part of the challenges. There's still colds and flus around that are people are getting, and it's a balance of the burden of every time you have a cold, needing a test. On the other hand, especially if the rates are increasing, wanting to make sure that we continue to avoid the spread within the school. And I think it's great that we have so far. So I have a concern about that, but I don't know. I have a concern, but it's not, I think honestly I'm not well enough informed, meaning seeing the data and the guidelines and everything else, and, you two and the rest of the administration is seeing to be able to say that, request something different, just continued vigilance, because I think that's a potential point of weakness, or vulnerability rather, because the symptoms of COVID can be so varied and potentially mild and more like cold and flu, that as we relax that requirement, I think increases the risk that there will be a positive case slipping through, where they come back where perhaps they shouldn't. More a comment at this point than a question.
No, I 100% agree. When we end up contact tracing cases, oftentimes the person who is positive will say, now that I think about it, I did have a runny nose 2 days ago, and that was their onset of symptoms.
Okay. And my last question is just a request for more information about quarantines and positives. I know there's information on the website, but I think recently we're sharing some information about the number of students quarantined, and if we could get whatever information you have, should take a step back, not whatever information. Some higher level, kind of summary information about number of positives in quarantine by building, if possible, on some regular basis, just so we have some sense of what's actually going on. Because I was, honestly surprised by the number of students that have been quarantined, because I had no idea from looking at the website and seeing 1 student, 2 students, 3 students who are positive, what the bigger picture of that is. And I think it's just helpful to know, because I know that if students is quarantined, the vast majority of the times I'm sure there's no infection, no real concern there, but it's still a burden on the family and the student. So it's just good to be aware of what's happening, because to me that also helps to inform my understanding as board members. I'm hearing about these things, and also about kind of, I guess, talk about strict, that loosey-goosey word, but how careful we should be in the requirements for whatever our COVID guidelines are.
Right, so we're following actually charts that we were given that were approved by all the surrounding counties on how to quarantine. And this is one area that does frustrate me because we send students home and it is a burden to families, and it's not as good for students not to be here. I would say that the area that most students get quarantined are on the bus and in the cafeteria. And so we know that those are our two areas. I will tell you that Rensselaer, which we're supposed to be talking to Greene County, their Department of Health is allowing them to pilot, because the buses it's 2 seats front, 2 seats in the back on both sides. They're piloting where they're going to start doing it, who is right next to you. And then they're going to track that. And I'm hopeful that Greene County would do something similar, that, you know, we can keep the data and show that, you know, because that's where it's happening. The highest amount is the buses, and again, cafeteria. Because the masks are off at that point, and, you know, there's no way to space them 6 feet apart and have them all here.
Right, so that's triggering the quarantine, and I get that, you know, for the reason you explained. Has there been any, have we seen any transmission, bus or?
I have not, that I can pinpoint. In most cases, we know that they'll say it was contact of a parent positive, contact of an uncle positive. That's what the Department of Health is giving us. So.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Erin.
Thank you, and we really appreciate everything you're doing. And it's unprecedented. There is no roadmap, and so thank you. Now, I'd like to turn it over to future discussion on future capital work.
Are you tired of all these discussions yet?
Well,
so this one is not going to be that long because we're just not at that point yet. So I have invited the architects to come to the January meeting to talk with the board. Just to let you know, and we've talked about it, so last month we had Chris here from Bernie Dunnigan's office to talk about the financial piece and what capital work could be supported with the reserve fund. And if you remember, if we just use the $2 million reserve fund, that could capture $5,180,000 project without any taxpayer impact. And that's based on the 70% that we get back for every dollar we spend. So it's that calculation over 15 years. And then we also talked about, well, if we use the reserve fund, plus we folded in the $195,000 that we have online for the capital work, what kind of project could that fund? And that was $9,440,000. So in my mind, that's what I'm looking at with the committee as the starting point. I did ask Chris, how much would we have to put in the budget if the project was 100% fundable for $1 million? So for every $1 million, if the board wanted to increase this size of this project, is approximately $35,000. So if we increase the budget, and I would say that this is what you will look at during the budget cycle, is if we wanted to have it larger than that. So it's $35,000. Again, that's important that the project has to be 100% aidable. If it's 50% aidable, then that's $65,000. So just, we have to make sure that the projects that are picked are aidable. So the facilities committee, we've had 2 meetings so far with the district architects, and I've scheduled another one for December 14th because we're at the point now that we have to make some decisions on priorities. So the first 2 meetings included a review of really all the items, went through each one, and this is the building condition survey. So you approved the contract, but that work has started and it's ongoing. This is every 5 years. The architects have to come in and they bring in their engineers, they look at all of the systems, look at all of the roofing, they look at everything in a school district, and they start to put the plan together, what really needs to be done now, what can wait, maybe 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. So you start to get that data. And that's usually what districts use to generate capital work. So the second meeting, we had already, so in between, we had a meeting also, and so we presented it to the committee as already now some priority 1, priority 2, priority 3. So I just want to talk about, and this is where we still have to wait on SED, which they are short-staffed and have not gotten back to us yet, is a lot of times any work that's an addition based on enrollment, based on a lot of factors. So that's what we have to make sure if any of that proposed work would be aidable and what percent it would be aidable at. So some of that work includes, we've talked about pre-K addition at elementary. We've talked about middle school, high school art addition, making that go out and giving both of those rooms more space. We have talked about a technology addition in that area. Some things that are not part of the numbers tonight, but that we're waiting for the architect to include it in for our next meeting so that we can discuss it is there's been talk for many years for an outside storage area and an animal area section for ag, so we're asking them to come back with proposed numbers on that. And same with, we've had some preliminary conversations about athletic lights and what kind of dollar amount goes with that. So I wanted to make sure the committee has all of that information. So I will say that there's a lot more money in the priorities than there are in the budget. So with that, we did ask them, one thing that we had talked about that really is probably not feasible with when you look at the ticket item is the air conditioning, to fully air condition both buildings alone. I've asked them to pull that out separately so that it really wasn't intermingled and we could see what that cost is. That itself is over 11 million. So that would be a conversation the board, I think, would have to have whether you would want something like that as a separate resolution. So besides the air conditioning, priority 1, now this includes, so at the elementary school, this is right now $9,767,900. And some examples, the big ticket items for elementary is the classroom renovations, roof restoration, and boilers. So their boilers are just about 30 years old, so it's time for those boilers. So again, no glamorous things here, but this is where we would have to, as a committee, decide, all right, that's all of the classrooms, that a significant number of classrooms. Do you start to say, in this project we can only do 10, this project we can only do. So those are things the committee will be looking at. Middle high school, and so that also includes the preschool addition. In the middle high school right now under priority 1 is $3,454,800 with an additional site work of $565, and the biggest ticket items there are roof restoration, outdated air handlers at the auditorium, dust collector need at the metal shop, the shop next to it, wood shop, thank you, and some upgrades to the stage. So then the bigger ticket items again are the art room and the technology room. So total of priority 1, and this includes the incidental cost, the cost of your architects, cost of any asbestos removal, right now is $13,788,500. So I won't, and priority 2 is another $8 million, priority 3 is just under $1 million, and then other funding we have where we're going to use the federal stimulus to do the projects. So I would say $13,788,000 versus the budget right now of $9,440,000. So at the next meeting, what the committee will be doing is setting the priorities. So what I would have them do is, what is the biggest priority to get us to that $9,440,000, and then I would like to see them start to list beyond that. If during the budget cycle, the board were to say, it's important for this work to be done too, we're going to add $1 million, or we're going to add $2 million. So that is what we're going to do at the next meeting, and that's what the conversation will be with the board in January. I will talk about the timeline that the board needs to, that we talked a little bit about is we know that the work cannot begin until after July 24th, 2023. That's actually when the approval from SED, we can't get that approval before that. And that's the incidental cost.
Right, when you say we can't get the approval, just because they're backlogged?
No,
Or what's the issue?
no, that's because that is when the 5 years expires and then we are allowed incidental money budget again.
Okay, makes
We did
sense.
so much site work, we've really depleted all of the incidental work that you're allowed to spend over a period of time at the state level. So that like renews itself, so then we have enough. And that is incidentals besides the site work, again, is your architects, is your construction manager, asbestos, any testing that has to be done falls under incidental cost. And any outside work is incidental cost. So we can, we've talked about a vote in May, and then if that happens, the architects would submit plans in the fall of 2022, and after the approval, well, they wouldn't submit the plans, they would submit the plans, they would work on them, and they would submit the plans close to knowing the timeline of them being reviewed, so they were close to that July, so we don't mess up. And so then you wouldn't bid till after that, so you're talking construction, if you can do any construction, would be the fall of 2023, but it wouldn't start really till the summer of 2024. If the board feels they need to wait, there you can do an off season, you can do a vote in like December, so not this May, but December, and then you would do the same thing. They would, the architects would work on everything, would pass the date of the 23rd when you're allowed, and or you could wait and do it the year after that. So those are the things. Right now we're looking at the May. It doesn't have to be the May. Obviously, everything I do, and I'm gonna want to discuss with the new superintendent to make sure that they understand everything. But that's just your preliminary topic before January. So more to come. Don't ask too many questions.
I was going to say thank you.
Tammy, you want to say that you don't want to wait too long because of the $2 million capital reserve.
Right.
Thank you, Tammy. I do have a couple questions.
Okay.
When will a building condition survey be done?
So that's what they've been working, they've done the building condition survey, working on it. So that's an electronic filing, but this is like what they've been giving us. So this, they're cleaning it up each time we meet. So in January, we'll make sure the board gets copies of this.
Okay, if I could just ask, could we get, as far in advance of the meeting where we'll discuss the capital project?
Sure.
Just as helpful because I have a feeling that's going to take a while to look through and digest.
Right. It's not going to be all decided at the January meeting.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
There is a lot.
And if we do, you said that it's possible that we could decide to vote on a capital project in December instead of May, or that there could be a vote in December instead of May.
Mm-hmm.
If that were to happen, how would that affect the overall timeline? Could construction still start in 2023 and summer 2024?
So the architects take about 6 months to work on their plans before they're submitted. So I think you're a similar timeline. It's just the additional cost of another vote.
Okay, and I think the last question, if I remember, I'm going to butcher the term, so I apologize, but the presentation we had was talking about the two different spending levels, right? Like approximately 9 million, I think approximately 5 or 6 million. With the higher level, there was some annual capital work that we would be able to do, right? Honestly, I still am kind of fuzzy on what that work is and what it means for us on a year-to-year basis if we don't have that money available. So what I'm hearing is that you're looking now at something that is at or above that level where we wouldn't have the annual money available to the district for that work. So whether it's now or following up to give us more information, can you kind of explain those pieces again? Like what it would actually mean in practical terms?
So my recommendation would be to fold that in and to get the higher amount now. And what you do is you can never anticipate an emergency, but there's fundings, because you have fund balance for a true emergency. But you can plan what your needed work is that you would probably do in the next few years. And you make sure that's part of this project. And what we've done in the past is we've used that, but then you start to build that back up slowly as you can, so that by the time 5 years from now, when, you know what, we do have this annual project we would like to do, you have put funds in the budget again. I would definitely recommend, no matter what, because we have capped the reserve fund, that you're going to have a resolution in May to start a new capital reserve fund. That's a must. And the voters have to approve that.
And could you just tell me again, talk to me like it's Monday morning, for that annual spending that we would not have under the higher capital project level, what is that work? And how would it get funded if we don't have that available to us?
So last year, we increased it because we had some debt retirement and got it as high as 195. We did two rooms. So our plan was to possibly do 2 rooms again. So what I'm saying is you fold in what you would have used those annual projects in to this bigger project, because it's going to cost you less because you have a bigger capacity to do it. Because now you have someone that's working on a $9 million project versus 2 small classrooms. It's going to cost you a lot more per classroom to do 2 at a time rather than doing 10 or 15 at a time.
Is there economy of scale there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So it's planning. It's called planning.
Okay, thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Taylor, do we have available to us a document that shows when debt is retiring on a calendar?
That was Bernie's document.
It was part of the paper that he gave you last week, but we can look at that. And
No, if I have it, I'll look at it.
yeah. So our next big one that we were talking about was that 2033 is the next time it. Right, so that's when we were talking about, well, let's look at these priorities. What can wait till that next project? Because you always want to, as you retire debt, start new debt. Retire debt, start new debt. Because that's just the way you keep it this way. You're not doing the spikes for the taxpayers. And that's how our bus replacement plan works. Beautiful. As we've paid off the one, we start the next. And that's why the fleet's in great shape and our mechanics do a great job. Wasn't always that way.
Okay, any other questions? Then I'm going to ask for input items for discussion at a future meeting. Any thoughts, anyone?
Did Angela give her, did she text you anything?
Yes, what Angela had said was possibly having the policy committee look at a DEI policy.
Personally, I think that would be a great idea. So, but I think we can raise it in the next policy committee meeting. Unless unless there's any concern or question from the board, not to start looking at it, then I think that we could start considering it in the committee.
One of the things I said on board, there was a letter from the president. In fact, he was talking about DEI goes beyond so much in the sense of just looking at children with special needs is part of that DEI. And so there are ways of really framing it that that work for all different school districts. So, okay. If there are no other topics, then I would say let's move on to the closing open forum. Please note the same guidelines apply as stated during the first open forum. Do we have anything? No.
We do not.
Okay.
I do not.
Anyone else that would like to make a comment or say anything? Okay. Then I need a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss contract negotiations and personnel matters pertaining to a particular person or persons.
Second? Jay?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everyone.